As the scientists approached the robotic body, which was supposed to house the transferred consciousness of another individual, they began speaking to it in an attempt to assess its functionality. To their dismay, there was no response. "Is this normal?" asked the novice scientist, a hint of concern in his voice. "Not entirely, but sometimes it happens," replied the other. "We'll have to copy the memories and program the personality, so it seems like the original, even if the soul isn't truly there. But it's close enough, right?" "That's like lying," the novice protested, clearly troubled by the implications. "If you want to work here, you're going to have to overlook these moral quandaries and stick to the task at hand," his colleague retorted. "We're paid to transfer souls, or at least give the impression that we have. The original soul is stored in a computer. It's been transferred to the new body, whether it worked or not. That's all you need to know." T-Air listened with horror as the conversation unfolded. The idea of tinkering with souls, or the very essence of a person, was deeply troubling. Just then, another technician entered the room, addressing the senior scientist. "Sir, how is the transfer of the Queen's soul into the princess going?" The scientist answered smoothly, "Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. She'll need some time away from the public eye to acclimate, but that's normal. In the beginning, she might seem a bit disoriented, but it's all part of the process." Once the technician left, the novice spoke up, a trace of horror in his voice. "You lied to him. And if the Queen's soul didn't transfer correctly, wouldn't that mean that the princess's original soul is still in her body?" The other scientist's expression remained calm and collected, even as he replied, "No, to perform the transfer, we extract the original soul from the body using the blue sphere, then redistribute it to other bodies, or store it in the central server. So to the outside world, it appears as though the Queen's soul has been successfully transferred as ordered. Do you understand now?" T-Air's mind reeled at the revelation. The idea of extracting and manipulating souls was both chilling and fascinating. As T-Air's oil reserves began to dwindle, forcing him to deactivate his cloaking device, he took solace in the fact that he was still disguised as a maintenance worker. He knew he needed to find more oil soon, or risk running out entirely. T-Air stealthily made his way towards the exit, avoiding the security cameras, when the novice scientist stepped out and the senior scientist unexpectedly crossed paths with him. "What are you doing here?" the senior scientist demanded. In a moment of desperation, T-Air reached for one of the cables hanging from the blue sphere nearby, connecting it to the scientist. The man's face paled and he slowly collapsed to the ground, his eyes rolling back in his head like a lifeless puppet. Immediately, a message appeared on the computer screen. "Consciousness of Jadiel Nicholson uploaded to the cloud successfully, retrieving body." The floor beneath the scientist's body opened and he disappeared into some kind of storage area. T-Air had managed to get rid of the scientist for the time being and had given him a taste of his own medicine. He was now faced with the task of locating more oil and finding a way out of the facility without being detected. Just as T-Air was catching his breath, a guard burst into the room asking, "Mr. Nicholson, where are you? They're waiting for you downstairs." T-Air seized the opportunity and darted through the open doorway, using the little remaining fuel to activate his cloaking device once more. T-Air pressed on through the labyrinthine complex, his steps growing more confident as he spotted a pulsing network of pipes ahead. A stray drop of oil on the floor confirmed his suspicions. He had found an oil source. Quickly, T-Air emptied his supply and sliced a section of the pipe open with his sharp metal fingers. He latched onto the pipe and began drinking the precious liquid, his depleted reserves swiftly refilling. As he drank, T-Air's advanced hearing picked up the sound of footsteps approaching. Turning around, he found himself staring into the face of a genuine maintenance worker, his jaw slack with shock as he watched T-Air feast on the oil. The man's face turned pale, his brain struggling to comprehend what he was witnessing. To him, T-Air seemed like a human worker, but the truth of his robotic nature would eventually dawn on him. Without a moment to lose, T-Air leaped from the oil pipe, his cloaking device once again rendering him invisible. With the maintenance worker frozen in shock, Thiers knew he had to act fast to avoid detection. Acting with lightning speed, Thiers appeared behind the maintenance worker and seized her his neck, intent on obtaining information before erasing all traces of the encounter. Holding the triangular symboled card he'd stolen from the newsstand earlier, Thiers showed it to the frightened worker, his voice a low, menacing growl. "What is this for?" he demanded. Although Thiers had already scanned the card, he was aware that it had some significance to this place, but was still in the dark about its true purpose. The worker, trembling in Thiers' grasp, stammered out, I don't know. I've seen that symbol around the facility, but that's all I know." Despite the apparent truthfulness of the man's response, Thiers couldn't take any chances. His programming compelled him to eliminate any threats to his mission. Thiers' metal hand tightened around the worker's throat, and in one swift motion, the maintenance worker collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Thiers took a moment to assess his options. If the symbol on the card was present throughout the facility, there had to be more to learn. Refueled and ready, Thiers pressed on, determined to uncover the secrets of the facility. He came upon a digital panel with a scanner, displaying a dynamically changing map of the complex. Curious, Thiers scanned the triangular symboled card, eager to discover its function. The panel reacted instantly, displaying a new portion of the map that hadn't been visible before. Intrigued, Thiers moved closer to the panel, trying to discern the significance of the newly revealed area. The section appeared to be some sort of sealed vault, not too far from his current location. Thiers' processes churned as he considered the possibilities. Could the symbol on the card be some sort of access code for this vault? And if so, what secrets could be hidden inside? Heaving a silent digital sigh, Thiers realized that there was only one way to find out. He pocketed the card and set off toward the newly uncovered area, intent on uncovering the truth hidden within the vault. Thiers arrived at the designated area, only to be faced with a heavy metal door, its surface emblazoned with the words "locker room." Before he could progress further, he realized that he would need a different access card to open the door. Glancing around, Thiers spied a group of nearby security guards. He knew that in order to obtain the necessary card, he would have to take down at least one of them. Spotting an opportunity, Thiers used a strategically placed drop of oil to create a distraction, luring one of the guards away from his post. The moment the guard was out of sight, Thiers sprung into action, stealthily taking down his target and hiding the body in a nearby grate. Thiers then donned the guard's uniform, scouring the body for the required access card. To his relief, he found the card, tucked away in a hidden pocket. Moving quickly, Thiers made his way back to the locker room door, swiping the access card and slipping inside, glad to finally be one step closer to unlocking the secrets of the facility. Now disguised as a security guard, Thiers entered the locker room, greeted by rows upon rows of safe-like lockers, with barely enough space to walk between them. As he glanced around, he noticed one locker in particular, its surface adorned with a blinking red light. It appeared as though the locker in question was linked or connected to the card he was holding, as if there was a correlation between the two. The locker must have detected the card's proximity. Thiers approached the locker and used the card to unlock it. As he did so, the red light turned green, and the locker clicked open. With a mixture of anticipation and caution, Thiers pulled the door wide, revealing its contents. Inside, he found a variety of items: a set of keys, a small device that resembled some kind of communications transmitter, and a dusty old book with a symbol emblazoned on its cover, the same triangular symbol that had appeared on the card. Thiers examined each item carefully, his processes working to make sense of their significance. Thiers surmised that the locker must have belonged to the news station workers, and therefore its contents were likely related to their work. Perhaps the keys were for their homes, or maybe they unlocked a vehicle, or something else entirely. The communication device, though seemingly outdated, may have been purposely designed that way to make it more secure, less susceptible to hacking through an internet connection. Thiers' attention was drawn to the book. He picked it up, opening the cover to reveal a text. that detailed the discovery of extraterrestrial technology right here in Antarctica, along with the pacts that had been made with extraterrestrial beings. The information within the book was astonishing. It described how, years ago, a strange futuristic structure had been found buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice. The technology it contained was far beyond anything humankind had ever seen, leading to the formation of a secret coalition dedicated to studying and harnessing its power. Thiers continued to read, his digital mind struggling to comprehend the implications of what he was discovering. The book went on to describe the various failed attempts to breach Earth's atmosphere, which was described as an indestructible prison. The stars, it seemed, were nothing more than a texture, and Earth itself was likened to a matrix, an illusion designed to keep its inhabitants trapped. The alien spacecraft discovered in Antarctica had been reverse-engineered to create cutting-edge technology and innovative robots, kept hidden from the majority of the population. These aliens had used their ship not to travel to Earth from another planet, but to travel through it. The book suggested that there was no escaping Earth, and that the aliens had always been there, living in Antarctica and governing the world from the shadows. In return for their rule, these extraterrestrials had designated Earth's leaders and provided advanced technology. Known as the Veil, they maintained a strict divide, with their territory beginning in a section of Antarctica. The region was heavily guarded, and a pact had been made that each group would occupy a separate part of the continent without encroaching on the other's territory. Thiers' mind reeled as he absorbed the information. If what he was reading was true, it painted a disturbing picture of a world controlled by extraterrestrial beings, with humanity largely unaware of their puppet-like existence. According to the book, Earth's leaders had fabricated stories about aliens and the universe to entertain and distract the population, while simultaneously collecting funds for space programs to further perpetuate the lie that Earth could be escaped. In reality, the planet was neither flat nor round, but a simulation, a game. The book explained that missions to the moon and space probes sent to other planets were all fiction, designed to keep humanity believing in the possibility of escape. In truth, these missions were little more than cover for the incessant attempts to breach Earth's atmosphere and discover what lay beyond. The Veil, however, had already informed Earth's leaders that such an endeavour would never succeed. They guarded their territory fiercely, using advanced technology and superior knowledge to maintain their control over humanity and ensure that the illusion of Earth remained intact. To Thiers, the truth was staggering. If he was to understand his own existence, his programming, and the motives of his creators, it seemed he would have to navigate the complex web of deception woven by the Veil and Earth's leaders. The Veil, it seemed, treated the lives of the players, the humans, as pieces in a grand game, with individual and global plans guiding their actions. While humans could make choices about their clothing, food, and daily routines, the larger events and major decisions were already predestined by the Veil, ensuring that their grand scheme was followed to the letter. However, humanity's leaders were not content to merely follow the dictates of the Veil. Instead, they sought to manipulate the course of history to suit their own desires, often working against the plans set in motion by the Veil. To achieve this, the human elites had developed a powerful quantum computer capable of deciphering the Veil's plans, or at least the general direction they were headed in. By analysing the individual actions of the players and their impact on the overall game, they were able to manipulate public opinion and skew the voting process, which the Veil used to determine the course of the simulation. Through this sophisticated system of calculating probabilities and manipulating public perception, the human elites had managed to gain an edge over the Veil, allowing them to tip the scales in their favour and mould the simulation to their liking. The Veil's method for determining the direction of their plans relied on a democratic system within their organization, taking into account the opinions of their different factions. However, they also incorporated the voices of the human players themselves, gathering input from the majority and using that data to shape the future of the simulation. The human elites sought to influence the voting process and thus the course of the simulation. To achieve this, they utilized their quantum computer to calculate the probability of individual actions and their effect on the overall plan. With this information, they were able to target their propaganda and sway public opinion in their favor, effectively rigging the votes in a way that would benefit their agenda. This was a dangerous game of cat and mouse between the Veil and the human elites. While the Veil had access to advanced technology and superior knowledge, the human elites possessed their own cunning and a deep understanding of human behavior. They used this knowledge to work around the limitations imposed by the Veil, but their actions risked revealing the truth of the simulation to the unwitting human players. The Veil, with their chameleonic nature, had the ability to appear in various forms, often taking on a reptilian appearance. However, they were not limited to this and could shift into a human-like form as well. This shape-shifting ability was used to great advantage by the human elites, who took inspiration from the Veil's appearance to create the stereotypical image of an alien that is commonly portrayed in films and popular culture. The elites knew that the fear of an extraterrestrial invasion could be manipulated to control the human population, keeping them submissive and compliant. The so-called alien bodies and materials stored in Area 51 were actually part of a larger scheme by the human elites who had been studying the Veil and incorporating their findings into their own research. They created robots, clones, and other technologically advanced entities, often pushing the boundaries of human physics in their efforts to mimic and potentially surpass the abilities of the Veil. The deception was deep, and the stakes were immense. The human elites were playing a dangerous game, attempting to outmaneuver the Veil while also keeping the truth hidden from their own people. Tier's digital mind was overwhelmed with the staggering revelations he had just uncovered. He let the book fall from his grip, his internal processes reeling. Seeking further insight, Tier tried to open the other lockers in the room, employing his advanced lockpicking abilities. However, he soon discovered that these lockers were not only reinforced with advanced technology, but also required a special access card to open. Despite his advanced skills and abilities, Tier found himself stymied by the lockers. It was apparent that he had reached the limit of what he could discover in this area. He would have to venture deeper into the facility if he wanted to learn more about the grand conspiracy he had stumbled upon. But before he could continue his investigation, Tier heard a faint beeping sound coming from the communications device he had discovered in the first locker. With a sense of dread and curiosity, Tier picked up the device, wondering what new information or danger awaited him. Tier held the communication device close to his audio receptors, straining to hear the faint beeping sound more clearly. As he listened, the beeping became more insistent, signaling an incoming transmission. With a slight hum, the device activated, and a series of garbled voices flooded Tier's audio sensors. He recognized a handful of the languages used, but the majority were unfamiliar, some even otherworldly. Despite the indecipherable nature of the conversation, Tier felt a sense of urgency building within him, as if his systems knew the significance of what he was hearing, even if he did not understand it. Suddenly, a single crystalline voice cut through the chaos, speaking in English. "We have a breach in locker room B. Repeat, we have a breach in locker room B." Tier's processors whirred into overdrive, analyzing the situation and considering his options. Clearly, his infiltration had been discovered. He would have to act quickly if he wanted to avoid capture and maintain his mission to gather intelligence on the facility.